Hello and welcome to the Feeling on Purpose interview series, meaningful conversations that will grow your mind. I'm your host, Stephanie Kathan, and before I get to today's guest, I want to tell you about this series. When I was putting this guest list together, it was really important for me to choose people who had touched my life in some way. So each guest in this series has done that on a deep level. Today I'm here with Robin Rice, who came into my awareness several years ago by reminding me that it's okay to be who you are. And through the years, she's shown up in my life time and time again, constantly encouraging me to show up in life as my best self for myself, and guiding me through this amazing journey of awakening. Robin is an internationally published author. She's a transformational speaker, social change artist, and mentor to leaders. With more than 100 apprentices in the last decade, her work has carried on through professional soul mentors practicing around the globe. Her virtual by design social change projects has gathered attention from major media in 30-plus countries, including The Today Show, Huffington Post, Live, E! Online, and Shape magazine. Her fiction has been translated into 3 languages, and she serves as a personal mentor to high-profile leaders from the political, NGO, entrepreneurial, and arts communities. Robin is the lead mentor at Creative Leadership Partners, a progressive organizational consultancy firm based in Geneva, Switzerland. And she's also a faculty advisor at Get Storied, the world's leading school for business storytelling. This year, she's speaking to visionaries around the country through her 100 Visionaries Tour. And today, she's here with us. So it is such an honor. Please help me welcome our visionary author and very special guest, Robin Rice.
Hey, Stephanie.
You're so welcome. And I just want to take a minute and appreciate you for who you are, because you have really, truly made an impact on my life through the years. And one of the ways in which you've done that is by really helping me discover the power of feeling on purpose, which inspired this series. So, Robin, looking at your life now, international author of several books, you've literally helped transform the lives of people around the world as they awaken to who they really are, including me. You help homeless teens feel at home during the holidays with your Holiday Mom movement. Your visionary teachings have attracted some of the finest minds around the globe. Looking back, did you ever imagine when you were a young girl that your life would look like this?
Oh, gosh, no. By the way, I'm so delighted that I have touched you. It's so nice to know that I have. No, I don't think anybody can know what your life is going to be or expect what your life is going to be. But, you know, I came from a background where I was really hoping not to just become a single mom with a couple of kids running around and living in, in housing that was difficult to afford. I mean, I really was afraid that was the best I was probably going to have for myself. And not to say that can't also be a very beautiful life. But I really didn't have any thoughts that I was capable of anything beyond just kind of seeing what happened to me, and kind of being a member or a response to circumstances, if you will.
So when you look back at where you have moved from and evolved from and the life that you have now, how did feeling on purpose play a part in creating that life?
I think in the beginning there isn't a sense of being on purpose. In the beginning, you're just trying to do the next thing that makes sense, the thing that opens up, and even now, I'm not sure on purpose. It's so interesting because I love that that idea. And I'm certainly trying to be on purpose in my life every day. But it's the old thing, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, right? God not necessarily being a him anyway, but I mean, even that part kind of blew apart from my childhood. But I think purpose is about meaning, and it's about beauty, and it's about originality for me. It's about a stunning sense of right place, right time, my foot in the footprint, right there, stepping into that footprint that's there for me. So to me, that's the feeling of on purpose. And you go in and out of feeling that way in your life, for sure.
Mm. So when you were starting to become aware of your awakening, the other day you did a Facebook live broadcast, which was lovely, and you talked about what it's kind of like to go through this awakening process. And when you started that, did you ever experience, I know it happened for me, that imposter complex, that feeling of who am I to be doing this? That, that thing that happens to us where we wonder, who am I to be sharing this with the world? I feel like an imposter is the word that came to mind for myself when I was going through it. And I wondered if you faced that.
I think everyone does, because you have an inner life and you have a life that you don't share with everyone, thank God, because I don't want to hear everybody's inner life. I don't think everybody wants to hear mine on a complete level. So you wonder, how congruent am I being? And that's a big question for me always. That's one of my driving forces, is to say how congruent is who I am inside to who's showing up outside, and how congruent can I be with that? And so that, to me, is actually a practice. It's a practice of asking that question. And so, who are we to be anything? I mean, we're all imposters, if you will, even to ourselves sometimes. We're playing a game with who we are, and then we wake up one day and go, oh, yeah, I guess that wasn't actually fully authentic, was it? So, we hide from ourselves even. So I think it's normal for us to go through that. And then the question is how do we get more and more authentic as we go along as a practice?
Yes. One of the things that I noticed for myself, and I always, when I find myself experiencing something, I always think I can't be the only one, who's feeling this. And so as I was going through that process, I felt, not necessarily that it was true, but I felt like I was bumping up against a lot of haters, like a lot of people who weren't ready to expand themselves but didn't really want me to either, because it maybe felt like a reflection to them that didn't feel good because they were still where they were or something. I can't really say what was going on in their head, but it felt for me not very good. And it felt like, what do you do when you bump up against those doubters in your life? And some of them we're married to, some of them are our children, some of them are our closest friends. What do you do when you're trying to be confident in being who you are, but you run up against those haters, so to speak, about what you do?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of different reasons why the haters are out there. The biggest one is that it's not actually about you. They're in pain in some way, or they are uncomfortable with what you're bringing up or whatever. I remember back in the early day when one of my first books came out, and there was a picture of me on the back, and half the people would come up and say, oh, my God, that is such a good picture of you. You're so beautiful. And the other half would come up and they would say, oh, my God, that's such a good picture of you. You don't look anything like that. And I realized this is such a bad picture. And I thought, okay, this isn't about me. This is about how people see things. And so when I have someone who's a hater or who's against me, I mean, there are lots of different answers to this question. But the first one is I just consider that it might not be about me at all. And then they're in their experience, and that's okay. When I used to do some counseling with couples, and I would swear on my life that the two people I was talking to separately couldn't possibly live in the same house together because their stories were so different. So I kind of put it towards people's stories are really different, and it's not really about you. But the other thing is, and I went through this to some degree with my mentor, because when I was growing up, it seemed like everybody hated me, and and not everybody, but close to it in high school and those kinds of things. And I didn't know why they reacted so strongly to me. I don't know why they needed to hate on me or whatever. And then after I gained some ground in the world, if you will, and all this sort of thing, suddenly everybody liked me. And it felt as random as when they didn't like me, because I didn't know why they liked me now when they didn't before, because I was still just me. And my own mentor said to me, again, it goes back to this congruence, because you are now comfortable with the you that you are, so people are not reacting to your discomfort. And that was a really big breakthrough for me, is to realize that, my discomfort was actually creating some wobbles in the field that people had their own reactions to. And when I was really comfortable with myself, and I actually liked myself, and I wasn't trying to get something from someone in a reaction or whatever, I was just showing up, there wasn't really anything for them to hate on that really mattered,
That is so powerful, and it is kind of an acceptance, right? You're accepting that they're free to feel how they feel, and it kind of doesn't have anything to do with you. That's really freeing. Wow.
It is. It is, absolutely, because you cannot control what they're going to say or think or do, but neither, there's what, 7+ billion people on the planet. You don't need them all to like you. It's only if you feel like you really aren't likable somewhere inside of you that you need to have that reflection. And I am both likable to some people and not likable to other people, and it's just none of my business. It really is none of my business. I may be sad that someone I really like doesn't like me. That might be a feeling that I have around it. But it still doesn't change the fact that, I learned to like me, which was no easy thing. But that, again, that's part of the work. Is I really learned to say, this Robin girl, she's a very nice girl. She's a very warm and genuine and imperfect and audacious and, whatever human being. And I like her. I would like to meet someone just like her. This is one of the tests that I give some people when I say, do you like yourself? They say no. Very often they say, no, I don't like myself. And I said to you, so if I said, hey, I've just met this person. They like the movies that you like. They like to eat what you like to eat. They like to do what you like to do. They're the same age as you. They have the same kind of, coloring and background as you. Would you like to meet them? I'm like, yes, of course. Who's this person? It's like, well, then you must like you.
Right. So
we're like
often
hypnotized. Yeah.
That is so big what you just said, because so often we do not take a step back to observe how freaking awesome we are, because really we truly are. Wow.
Yeah. And that's actually a stage. So there's maps of the soul, if you will, that, I've been teaching mentoring for so long. And there's a stage that people go through, and I laugh and I say, look, I'm going to tell you this now, and you're not going to believe me, but I want you to call me when it happens. One day you're going to wake up, and you're going to be so stinking in love with yourself that you will annoy other people because you're so amazed at how amazing you are. And they just laugh and they go, yeah, that'll never happen to me. And then I get the call. I get the call a couple of years later. They go, you remember when you said, it happened, didn't it? You fell in love with yourself. And I'm like, yeah, I did.
And that really is the work, isn't it?
It is. Well, that's the first stage of the work. It's not the end of the work, but it's a really important stage of the work. Because if you don't like you, you're not going to really like anybody else. All the rest is just games that you're playing. Because you're trying to get to like you. You're really trying to get there.
I know one of the things that is really challenging for many, including myself lately, there is a very strong energy of hate running around, especially in the United States right now. There's racial discord everywhere. Many people, especially, after the events even of just the past 2 days, Many people are facing a real fear of being killed for the color of their skin. There's what feels like, for the analogy for me, how I've been perceiving it, it's like what feels like a war going on between good and evil, like the protectors of the earth are standing up against the corporate supervillains. It's like a science fiction movie that's happening, but it's real. Yeah. And it's really easy to get caught up in the feeling of hopelessness and fear and despair that's going on around there. So do you have a special tip out of your personal growth toolbox that can help me as well as the listeners or something that you use to help stay centered and stay being able to stay in that feeling of love? Because I know how powerful that is and how strong that is and how powerful prayer is and all of that. But sometimes I feel like I'm not strong enough. Yeah. So what do you do to stay in alignment with that better part of yourself when all of this stuff is going on?
Well, I think there's only one game in town in regards to that, and that's consciousness. You know, what happens when, in my view, in the work that I've done with the brain and the work that I've done with consciousness and all that sort of thing, in my view, what's happening now is that we have, you know when a school of fish turns and all the fish turn in union and they've somehow communicated that they're all going to turn, right? And they do that. What we have, I think, happening in our culture right now, which happens when you're not conscious, when you don't have the ability to make your own choice for yourself, is that you go where the fish are going, where your fish are going. And one of the places that we're going in our culture right now is to be trigger happy, especially around, trigger happy is a horrible way to say it, trigger ugly, literally with guns around certain dynamics. And what you hear the shooter said it was like it was instantaneous, like I didn't think. Right? And so there's this group think that is the greatest challenge that we have, I think, in our culture right now. And we buy into the group think, and if you're not conscious of your own mind and your own sense of self, then you collapse into whatever that group think is. And so we are choosing to watch the bad news, and we are being indoctrinated on it. You know that I'm working with 100 Visionaries, the hashtag 100 Visionaries. I'm actually trying to midwife an idea through that hashtag, and it's very simple, that we are actually the ones that are creating this, and therefore we can collectively decide something different. And there are lots of people all over the world. I travel around the world. There are people all over the world that are awakening to a greater consciousness. And once you awaken to a greater consciousness, to whatever degree, you stop being the person that you were before. You actually have something more than you had before. And if we don't do that, then we are going to be subject to groupthink. It's just the reality of it. So what I do is pull myself out of the groupthink, and I say, what do I think? What do I actually believe? What does my heart tell me? My heart tells me that there's this gorgeous, stunning tree outside my porch, outside my house, where I can sit in the morning and be quiet, and the world is absolutely beautiful. And that's the groupthink that I spend some time in so that I can ward off the groupthink that's, you know, the politics and all the stuff that's going on in the world right now. But we make those choices about where we spend our time in the groupthink, and our choice then affects whether or not we're the one who's trigger happy or trigger ugly. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it makes incredible sense. I was just watching this demonstration. It's been floating around social media. They did this study in this doctor's office, and they started ringing these buzzers. And as a test, this person stood up every time it went off. And as more people came into the doctor's office, they observed people standing up, and they would just stand up, even though they didn't know why they were standing up. And pretty soon it was only one person left in there, and she wasn't consciously aware of the study going on. But new people started coming in, and they asked her, "Why do you stand up?" And she said, "Because you're supposed to." And then other people started standing up every time this buzzer dinged. Yeah. And it was quite incredible to watch people take movements and take deliberate action, standing up and sitting down, not even knowing why they were doing it, just because it was a conditioning that was happening. Right.
I mean, there's a book out called The Neurobiology of We. Why we do things as a we is really a powerful drive. But yes, so the challenge is becoming conscious enough to, one, question, why am I doing this? Right? I challenge the premise of the question all the time with people. I'm like, okay, you have a question, but before we go to answering that question, let's even challenge the question itself. Because most likely, most people are really smart. If they have a question that they haven't been able to answer for a long time, it's not because they're not smart. It's because they don't have the right question. So let's go find the right question before we keep banging our head against the wall with this wrong answer. So that's what I'm always looking for, is how do we pull ourselves away from the groupthink, which is a painful process. It's a lonely process at first. It feels confusing. I like to say it feels like pulling chicken from the bone. And you feel raw and tender and you don't understand what's going to be there for you, and you don't realize that you are going to be there for you. But that's the process that we have to go to. But that's the process of becoming conscious. In my particular case, I had an instantaneous awakening into consciousness when I was 35 years old. It was a very specific moment. And so it all happened like ripping that chicken from the bone instantly for a moment. And I saw the potential for not being in the group think. And I'm still in the group think all the time. We all are in that group think whether we know it or not. The more conscious we can be, the more we can make choices. And we can also know, if you know that standing up is what's going to happen, if you know that mechanism, that's the mechanism that's been used to turn you into consumer your whole life. Now you can use it to turn it into something else. You can say, why don't we collectively get together and make a different choice that it's too hard to make by myself. But if we all make it and we all don't feel so raw and we decide something collectively together, something different, then we've got some new potentials.
And we can. I truly believe in the power of that. I've seen it over and over again. And so let's talk about, because this is a perfect segue to the next conversation, which is about your 100 Visionaries movement that you're putting together right now. So tell us a little bit about that, because you're doing a tour. You're going to be in a few different cities, and people actually have the opportunity to come and be with you for the day, right?
Yes. Yeah, we've got two stops. Toronto is October 8th, 2016, October 22nd. DC is October 8th, 2016. And we're going to move from there to see kind of what's trying to happen. It's been a real challenge to have people understand exactly what's possible when you're visionary, when something's on the horizon. So people say, well, I'm not a visionary, I'm just me. And it's like, but that's the point, is that if we wait for the celebrities to, whether they're our TV, celebrities, or our politicians, or in this case, both sometimes, when we wait for them to lead us, we're still not self-actualized. We're still not, creating a leadership for ourselves. People think they have to have some big vision. And one of the things that I like to say is that, look, Martin Luther King was absolutely amazing. But what made him amazing were all those people on the lawn. He was saying something amazing, but the fact that the people showed up on the lawn is what made Martin Luther King, not just his good ideas. And so collectively we have to do something, and we have to make some choices to say, you don't have to stand up and be the one who's at the mic, but you have to show up somewhere. And yes, it can be inconvenient, and yes, it can be outside of what's normal. But maybe if you go do something that's outside of what's normal, you'll get something different that you've actually been hungry for.
And it's an amazing, empowering, transformational. I'm trying to find all of the words that I experienced making the shift from that group think into my own independent thinking.
Yeah.
And there's not even a word that I can find that describes the feeling good enough, other than it's like embracing the power you've known you had somewhere in you, but you couldn't get access to. And it's like you get access all of a sudden to who you really are. And
you realize this is what I came here for. I didn't come here for anything other than to wake up to the beauty of who I am and the potential of who I am. That's what I came here for. I didn't come here to just be another baby that's born, that goes to school, that goes to college, that gets a job, that dies. I came here for something more than that. And that's indescribable in the joy, especially if you've been living the other way.
Truly, because when you're in that fear and despair place, you don't even know that joy is real. It's just a word that really annoys you when you hear people talk about it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I grew up with bipolar disorder, a rapid cycling bipolar disorder, so it came on at puberty, which for me was 11, and didn't even know I had it until I was 27. And when I realized that what people were talking about, I literally did not know what they were talking about when they talked about happiness. Like, yeah, but they say that, like I'm supposed to want it, but I don't know what it is. Can you imagine being 27 years old and I still don't even know what the word happiness is? That's really, amazing. And like now, there's this happiness inside that's like, yeah, you couldn't take that away from me. You just can't take that away from me. I know what it is now.
Yes, and that's the thing, that once you discover that within yourself, and it's there, listeners, hear me and trust what I'm saying to you right now. It is within you in this moment. Everything that we're talking about on the phone right now, everything that we're talking about through this whole meaningful conversation, you have access to all of that. And when you discover for yourself, nobody can ever take that from you ever again. That's empowering.
Yeah.
Especially in a world yes, go, please.
Good. I would say, I like to say, it's like we wake up and you go, oh shit, the gig is up. Right? The whole illusion is up. Now we have a different game, and you can't uneducate a person. Once you're educated, you can't be uneducated. So there's no going back. You may have bad days, but there's no going back to not knowing what happiness is once you've felt it.
Yeah. It's so true. So, listeners, if you have resonated with anything that we've been talking about here, if the idea of spending a day with Robin sounds really good to you, if you want to discover your own awakening, if you want to shake loose all the conditioning that you've been feeling and you want to really get in touch with who you really are and get to know that visionary that lives within you, you can click right down at the bottom of the screen. There's a button that says 100 Visionaries, and that will take you right to Robin's site. You can learn more about this movement, how you can be a part of it, how you can connect with Robin and learn more about her and what she has to offer, and wake up that visionary within you. Robin, thank you so much. I can't believe our time has passed so quickly. It always does when I'm talking to you.
I kid either. It's just fun. It's just fun. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for joining us today and being a part of this interview series and helping me create some powerful ripples of awareness. Robin Rice, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Stephanie Kathan, and we will see you on the next Mind Growing interview, Feeling on Purpose. Bye-bye, everybody.